All right, let's get after it. This is the Time Freedom System. I am Lars Hedenborg, the founder of Real Estate B School. And this is a big, bold promise here during our time together. And I know y'all are here because you are real estate business builders, but this is how to make more money in less time with less stress. So that is the big promise. And I don't take that lightly or make the promise lightly. If you haven't grabbed a copy of the business productivity pack, comment productivity below and we will send over a copy right away. So here's the thing in real estate is that traditional success, either as a top agent or a real estate team builder, you're going to feel frustrated. You're going to hit a cap in terms of the amount of work you can do and the money you can take out of your business. And the goal is for us today to be able to detach time and money. It's the one thing, if I've done anything right in my real estate business growth journey, it is that one thing. How do I make a lot of money, not working a crazy amount of hours or evenings and weekends and that crazy stuff that comes along with real estate? So the reality and part of the frustration is that we all have competing priorities. We all have areas of our life that we want to focus on that real estate naturally draws us away from. And I have been there. I feel your pain. This is 2008. This is my first full year in real estate. And you can see our firstborn, Anders. He's about 1 year old at this point, and I am not being a good dad. I'm not present. I don't think he knew any better. You can tell him right there that he's pretty happy with his bottle. I think Julie, my wife, just handed me Anders. She's probably tired and exhausted. She was working at this point, and we were just hopeful that this move into real estate was going to be fruitful for our family. The next thing in terms of frustrations is that the time that we're living in right now is extraordinary. And I don't mean to say that like I'm an OG and I've been around, this earth for hundreds of years. When you think about it, though, with social media, with news, with Netflix, all the stuff that's coming at us, if we're married, if we have children, if we're trying to spend time with God every day, if we're trying to take care of our physical body, there is an extreme amount of just external influences and things that we want to do and goals that we want to accomplish. And so it is really frustrating when you're trying to sell a lot of homes, make a lot of money in real estate, and you have all of this other stuff coming at you. And just being a real estate agent, here's the thing that's not talked about often, is just being a real estate agent is really, really hard, right? There's a full 12 core jobs that you need to do at a high level to be a really prolific, financially free real estate agent. So there's a lot to do. I will say this, and this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, really unpacking the hope that I hope to give you today. There is hope if we do this thing the right way, that we can use our business to systematically increase our net worth, so turn our business into a money machine, have more time off, so not have to sacrifice the time away from the business because we're making money, and put things first that matter most in our life. That's really the big promise here. Yes, more money. Yes, more freedom. Ultimately, more impact. So how do we get there, right? These are big claims. And just because I've figured this stuff out, how do we go about teaching it if you're spending some time here today? So Real Estate B School, I started Real Estate B School in 2013 after a hard journey of my own in terms of building a business that in 2014, so about 5-6 years, full years into the business, sold 453 homes and worked 42 days that year. Almost netted $1 million in that business. And I wasn't involved. I was really leveraged out of the business. So I understand this. We've served thousands of folks in Real Estate B School at this point. So let's talk about the 3 things you're going to need to do to separate time from money. Number 1 is to know your worth. This was an exercise that I went through. I didn't quite call it this back then, and I really didn't know how powerful it was going to be. But I calculated my dollar per hour. Now we call it the Business Freedom Index. It's simply calculating the money you take home divided by the hours you work. So essentially calculating $1 per hour, right? The first time I did this calculation was after I finished my first 10 months in the business. I got into real estate in March 5th, 2007 is when I left my corporate job. And so I had 10 full months in real estate. I grossed 250 gross. My broker took way too much money because I was generating all the business by myself, sold 27 homes. So I took, after broker splits, about 175. I only netted $37,000, and I worked, after calculating the number of hours I worked in those 10 months, about 2,000 hours. Very simple math. 37,000 divided by 2,000 is $18.50 an hour. There was no freedom in that number, right? I knew something had to change. I decided that I was going to make $500,000 and I was going to work 2,000 hours in a full year. I was okay working a 40-hour work week. I just didn't want to work evenings and weekends. I already had a sense that this was going to get in the way of things that mattered most to me. So the question for you, and that's $250 an hour. So everything became clear to me when I decided I was going to go after 500,000 working 2,000. Then I raised it to 1 million working 2,000. And then ultimately I raised it to 1 million working 1,000 hours, which is $1,000 an hour. So the question is, what's your number? And there's no shame in this number. There's no shame in where you're starting right now. It's just a starting point. So what's your number right now? This is a good, well, usually I calculate this based on my AGI on my tax return, and then I just calculate the number of hours that I work. But for you, you probably have a really good idea or a general idea about the amount of money that you're taking from the business and the hours that you're working. Calculate that number, but also inspire yourself, right? This is not to, shame you or, discourage you, right? This is to encourage you that if I can make the pivot, right? It took me a few years to figure out the $250 an hour. A couple years after that, I made over $3,000 an hour in my real estate business, right? So this all starts with mindset. I'm not getting tactical yet because this is all about mindsets. The question is, what do you want your business freedom index to be? So our second point here is to be productive, not busy. Most real estate agents, if you were to follow them around for a period of time, and I gave you guys in that business productivity pack, I gave you guys a copy of our time study. If you were to follow a busy real estate agent, or even a team leader around for 2 weeks, you'd be blown away by the low dollar productive things that they're doing. And they may feel good at the end of the day because they checked a lot of things off of their list, but ultimately they were not being like maximum productivity, right? So there's a really good definition of productivity. This is from Dan Kennedy. Productivity is the deliberate strategic investment of your time, talent, intelligence, energy, resources, and opportunities in a manner calculated to move you measurably closer to meaningful goals. That is powerful. And if you were to measure on a daily basis, or even looking back a week at a time against this definition, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how productive was I today or this week? Did I deliberately, strategically invest my time, talent? And you'd be like, oh man, I'm a 1 or a 2. But the cool thing is we give ourselves grace and we could just move forward knowing what we know now. So the game that we're playing, and this is worth a screenshot. I don't know that the game of real estate's ever going to change, right? We have, ways that we bring, leads into the top of the funnel here. And there's essentially a 5-step process that we need to go through. So, and in Real Estate B School, attract, convert, deliver, scale. Attract, convert, deliver is essentially this game that we're playing. So in terms of, your lead sources, the first question you need to ask yourself is, the number of meaningful conversations. Will you apply the discipline to do the work to have meaningful conversations? And are you setting up systems to make that work, quote unquote, easier so that it's not going to be as linear, right? We want to get away from linear income. We want to get into leveraged income. The second sort of step in the process here is appointment set. Can you compel the prospect to take action? So are you saying the right things, or do you have the right lead nurture sequence to eventually get them to have a virtual consultation, buyer or seller, or a face-to-face consultation. Will they show up pre-sold on your services? So the third step is, do they actually show up? Are you going to meet with would-be buyer and seller clients? Step number 4 is, are they going to choose you as their agent, right? Is the value proposition, good enough to sign with you? And then ultimately we want to get them to be a loyal client, and then to ultimately close on a transaction. And if you do this process right in a world-class way and stitch all of it together in a very sort of checklist, but service-oriented way, it's game over, because this is a virtuous cycle. And if you do it right, it's going to end up with you getting 2 to 3 times the clients of one you put through this funnel. If you do this the right way. That is for another training that I will go through. But then also work your plans. In real estate, if you look back here, there's only 5 things that make you money as a real estate agent. So when you think about where you're spending your time, have the backdrop of prospecting, P, which I call new business development. Lead follow-up, that's the L. A is appointments, which we call consultations, with buyers and sellers the first time to sign them on as clients. N is negotiating a buyer under contract or getting a listing under contract, not necessarily in the repair or appraisal negotiations. And S is systems, right? So PLANS. How much of your time are you spending in these 5 core activities? If you've seen me talk about the traditional model versus the scale model, on the left-hand side here, we want to be able to build a business that allows us to have time freedom, money freedom, and low stress, and ultimately a business that we can scale. And we have to start with being able to attract folks into our world. If we can't attract, there's no opportunity. If we can't convert, which is the second phase here, we won't have any clients. If we don't deliver in a world-class way, systematically, there's going to be no money, right? This left-hand side is very much like linear. An agent, gets a client, they convert them, they show them homes or get their listing on the market, negotiate a deal, and then they start the process over again. It's very linear. We want to pull this off in a leverage way. That left side is important, right? But in and of itself, it ends up having you be a slave to the business. On the right side, we still want the same outcome: time freedom, money freedom, freedom from stress, but it's more about scaling, which is knowing your numbers, creating your future, growing your team. And that's ultimately true business freedom. On a future training, I'm going to dig deeper into this, but I just wanted you guys to know, here's what it looks like. I would take a screenshot of this. This is how we really analyze our businesses of the members that we work with. You have to work on the business. So in your calendar on a regular basis, you have to have work on business time blocks where you're installing these systems. You can see the 4 drivers: attract, convert, deliver, scale. The accelerators. So each driver has 3 accelerators. This is how you build a leveraged, sustainable business worth owning. So the question for you is, what's the next right thing you should be working on in your business? And I don't care where you are in your business growth journey, right? You may have more attraction issues, right? Maybe you don't have enough leads coming in, or maybe you have a ton of leads coming in, but you don't have a lead management or appointment setting process or a standard consultation process, right? You're doing everything yourself, and it's like magic every time you do it. All right. So point number 3 here is that there's freedom in structure. Kind of an oxymoron. I live by my calendar. I have every 90 days, I create an ideal week based on where I want my week to be spent, right? So how I want to time block, how I want to show up, the things I want to do in my business. It didn't start out the way that it is today, but today, as it stands now, outside of this being a holiday week, typically have Fridays off with a 2-hour massage. Mondays are my content creation days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I take calls. But any of those days, I don't start work until typically 11, most days 12. Sometimes I'll start at 11 if I have a couple calls that I need to get in. And typically I'm done 5:30, right? I think there's a way, and I've seen members do it. We've coached members to do it, to create your ideal week in a way where it's absolutely sustainable and you can avoid burnout. It comes with becoming, and this is like great time blocking. You're really trying to teach me time blocking. You may know about time blocking, but are you actually doing it? I didn't do it in the beginning. I woke up and my day was just got away from me, right? But the key to freedom is to be able to decide in advance where you want to spend your time and then just commit to spending your time there. This is a calendar that is sustainable, right? So this, I would screenshot this if I were you. Everything in red is typically outside of the team meeting. If you guys are running a team, is sort of filling up your heart, right? So family night, date night, family time, Bible or prayer, meditation, goal setting, family time, church, those sorts of things, money-making activities, new business development, your appointments, your lead follow-up, all this stuff has to be in your calendar. If you're going, and you can see work on business time blocks, typically you want probably more than one of those, a couple of those in your calendar per week. Like I said, weekly planning session. Even in my heavy growth years where I was in a lot of production, rarely did I work Sundays, and Saturdays was by appointment only. So I would have to have 3 listing appointments essentially. I think I did like 9, 11, and 1 on Saturdays. I knew if I could set 3 listing appointments, today I would have done it differently. I wouldn't have given Saturday as an option, but I would just set up 3 and I would take them all. And so the other thing here is to negotiate these time blocks with your spouse, right? Really, really important. And then there are frogs that will need to be eaten along the way. There's a good book by Brian Tracy called, it's around procrastination, but it's called Eat That Frog. And the frog is the thing that you don't necessarily want to do. For most of us, it's new business development. It's the hand-to-hand sort of contact sport that real estate is having meaningful conversations with would-be buyers and sellers. And then just be honest with yourself. This requires a little bit of introspection to really, when you look at your calendar, where are you spending your time? Are you waking up and it's just a free-for-all and there's no order to your calendar? Or are you deciding in advance the kind of money you want to make, the hours you want to work, and then you're being honest with yourself about maybe some things have to go away for you to be able to fulfill on the commitments you're making with your time and the money that that time has to turn into to make it worth it and to also make it sustainable. I want to tell you a quick story before we leave. And if you got my email this week, you heard me talk about Dave Friedman. He messaged me recently after he got back. I think I reached out to him and he didn't respond for a while. And he reached out after he got back from 30 days, completely unplugged, no cell phone at all with him. When I first met Dave, it wasn't like that. He was coming off a year, he sold 35 homes. The first year I met Dave, he did about 65 units, working all sorts of crazy hours. His relationship, and I can only share this because he shared it publicly, was pretty rocky with Haley. He wasn't in a good place in terms of his trajectory. It was putting in more hours to make more money. And, fast forward, a handful of years, 10x his income, a healthy 7-figure take-home income. And he only did low 6-figure. So 125,000 or so when I first met him. He didn't take any vacation those first few years in real estate, and he regularly takes 15 plus weeks of vacation as it is now. So not only is it possible, it's predictable when you have the right system and roadmap. So here's what we covered today is to know your worth. Decide right now where you want to spend your time and what you want to be making in those increments of time. And then everything else needs to be delegated. Second thing we covered is to be productive, not busy, right? We don't want to check a whole bunch of things off a to-do list, but then we're not doing the right things, right? There's only 5 things, PLANS, right? And then number 3 is just really embracing the fact, and I believe it is a fact, is there's massive freedom and structure. I'm super structured, but the reason I'm able to take probably 12 to 15 weeks vacation and have the workday that I want is that I believe if it's in my calendar, it will happen. I'm inspired by Dave. I'm going to take 30 consecutive days off unplugged next year, and I'm excited for it. And if you didn't grab a copy of the Business Productivity Pack, comment productivity below. We'll get you a copy of that. And here's the thing, there's no hard sell. This is all value. But if you do want to go further, faster in your real estate business and get on a trajectory of growth, don't really care where you are right now. You just need to be growth minded and know that there is a next level for you. Grab a free business growth assessment. Go to rebsgrowthassessment.com. You'll pick a time, answer a couple questions, and we'll have a conversation, either myself or I've got a couple business coaches that are helping with these growth assessments as well. We'll jump on a call and really figure out get you a plan to profitably and predictably scale your business. And this is just the stuff that works. There is no gimmicks or hype around anything we do in Real Estate B School. So go to rebsgrowthassessment.com and we'll see you on the next training. Much love.